We are coming down to the business end of the championship. Pierre-Louis Chauvet still has the series lead, but Guan Yu Zhou is about to start from pole position. Yesterday afternoon, Patrick Pasma took a sensational victory, his first in the championship, and in a few moments we'll take a look at the highlights of race 11.
各位观众，大家好，欢迎回到我们的直播现场。即将进行的是第12回合国际汽联亚洲3级方程式锦标赛的比赛了。那么在昨天的比赛当中呢，帕斯马获得了冠军，这也让乔维和周冠宇的这个总冠军之争愈演愈烈。那么今天呢，周冠宇将从头位发车。我们在比赛之前，先来看看昨天的精彩集锦。
And here are the highlights from yesterday's race 11. It was Kush Maini, the Indian driver, on pole position, who moved ahead to take the lead ahead of Patrick Pasma into turn number 1. He had set the fastest lap in race 10, hence his pole position, and he got away from the field. These two managed to pull out a gap in the early running ahead of the two championship contenders there, Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Zhou Guanyu, battling for third position, with Roy Nissany in the mix, and he was to feature significantly later on. You can see those front two early on did open up a bit of a gap. Unfortunately, we then had a safety car, and that's been a bit of a feature of some of the races here at the Dubai Autodrome so far this weekend. Roy Nissany battling through past Zhou Guanyu, but he wasn't able to hold that position for too long as the Chinese driver came right back here. And this was the contact that brought out the first safety car. The two female drivers, Irina Sordikova and Amna Al-Khabaisi, with Al-Khabaisi retiring here. So the safety car was out, the gap was all closed up from those front two, with Roy Nissany in third position. And then at the restart, look at Patrick Pasma in second place here. He thought about taking a look, putting pressure on Kushmani. And there was plenty of action in the midfield as well. Now, look at Pasma. He takes a look around the outside, then goes on the inside and makes it stick with an absolutely sensational move to take the race lead. And just moments later, look at this. Kushmani just taken out from the back there by Roy Nissany. Both of them out of the race, and they spin. Some furious reactions there after the end of that little incident. So that brought out another safety car, and that's how the race finished. Patrick Pasma getting his first win of the season from Zhou Guanyu, his fourth consecutive second place finish, and the championship leader Pierre-Louis Chauvet. That was your 1, 2, 3, with Roman Stanek in fourth, Reese Ushijima and Alex Connor, the 16-year-old driver, in sixth position. So the races have been getting progressively more and more interesting. Let's take a look at this track here at the Dubai Autodrome. Well, typically you'd expect to see the overtakes at the end of those two long straights going down into turn 1, and then again on the backside of the circuit into turn 10 as the drivers use the slipstream to their advantage, but no DRS in the F3 Asian Championship. There are other places for overtaking though, as Patrick Pasma demonstrated to great effect yesterday with arguably the move of the season. So Friday's race 10 was fairly pedestrian, if we're honest. Not a whole lot happening, but yesterday there was plenty of action despite two safety cars. So we're hoping for another cracker today. Now, Zhou Guanyu is on pole position, and he's been speaking to Ian. Let's see what he has to do as he looks to try to get back to winning ways.
Guan Yu Zhou, we have got 4 races left in the championship. You're 22 points behind Pierre-Louis Chauvet, but in a few moments' time, you will start on pole position. Surely, it's all-out attack.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, that obviously race 1, he had a mega jump and got me in the start, so make sure that didn't happen in the next race coming up. So all in for the start, and I'm sure that as soon as I'm in the lead for turn 1, no one will be overtaking me.
Not only Pierre-Louis Chauvet out front, but also Jahan, a fellow Formula 2 driver, right in contention for the championship.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this championship is being us three the whole way. everybody is quick here and is competitive, and yeah, I'm trying to do everything to stay ahead of these two.
And finally, it's been a big week for you. Recently announced signing up with Uni Virtuosi and FIA Formula 2 Chinese New Year. Surely that's not a distraction. You're focusing on the championship.
No, for sure not. You know, I'm in the race weekend. I'm focused on doing my job to the best, and yeah, it's been a good week for me. You know, to announce that racing Formula 2 with the same team, in the same time having Chinese New Year here. Not the best place I would like to celebrate, but I will try to do my best to have a good result.
Guan Yu Zhou, the final race of the weekend in just a moment, starting on pole position. Best of luck.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So Zhou starts from pole. Down in 7th position is Turkish driver Cem Bulukbasi, who has one of the largest followings of this championship due to his history as an esports driver and has a race win in the F1 Esports Series. He's finished 7th and 8th so far this weekend. Starts on the grid from 7th today. And he has a very interesting background. We were able to catch up with him earlier in the championship to talk about his history and how he has successfully managed to make the jump from simulator to car.
Was a Formula One world champion before his first ever professional car race. Cem Bulukbasi from Istanbul won the F1 Esports title here in Abu Dhabi 4 years ago.
I'm Cem Bulukbasi from Turkey, racing in the Formula 3 Asian Championship with Black Hearts Racing.
And since has converted that success into a career as a real-life driver. We spoke to Cem, one of the more fascinating drivers competing in the Asian Formula 3 Championship.
Oh yes, I mean I always wanted to. I tried some testing before, but I never had the money or budget, let's say, back in those days in 2016 or 2017. So that's when I switched to esports. But then, I mean, switching to esports, I hoped to be back in racing again, in real life motorsports. But that was my hope, it was my goal, but it's something I believed in, but also it was a big surprise when it actually happened. Yeah, I mean, I've done 2 races in GT4 in 2019. It was like a shootout. We did the first race and we were 5th in the race. And in the second race, we actually got the first podium of the team by finishing 2nd. So it went pretty well. So the next year they said I could race with them for the whole season, which then we finished with 2 wins and a lot of podiums. I think we were 2nd in the championship in GT4 European Series. So it was definitely great. I'm looking forward to race there again. Yeah, I think in terms of expectations, I never expected to be in the top 10 in all the races. If you tell me a couple of weeks ago that you would like get 6 out of 6 races in your first races in F3 Asian Championship against a grid like this, I would take it any day. So I'm pretty happy. I think we just need to build up from here because we didn't expect to be this high. So now that we're high, of course we're aiming for higher. So we just want to improve every race in terms of race pace, quali pace. So that's what we're trying to do. And if we can stay in top 10, get into top 5 or top 3, that's our own goal. I think any championship is important in esports because if you can somehow show you're talented on the simulator world, you have the chance to show that in the real world. I was lucky there. I was on the right place at the right time. So I think they should seek for that chance as well. I know that racing esports scene is getting bigger and bigger in China. I hope we see more Chinese players in the F1 esports scene as well. So I think when that gets more traction, it gets bigger, I think it will give them a bigger chance to go to real racing. So I say they should never give up and go for it.
Turkey's Cem Bulukbasi, good in the simulator, good in the car, and a very likeable young man as well. Now, Richard Bradley, the former Formula Nippon and sometimes LMP driver, is the race engineer for him and driver coach for Black Arts Racing. As we look at the points standing, Chem down in 9th position in the standings, but really it's those top three. 19 points is the lead currently for Pierre-Louis Chauvet, but Zhou Guanyu can bank 25 points, and no matter where Chauvet finishes, at least take a dent of 7 points out of Chauvet's lead at the top if he can convert his pole position into a race win. And the other man in contention is Indian's Jahan Dirivala, who is a further 21 points behind Zhou Guanyu. And then a bit of a gap, 61 points all the way down. You can see in the team championship, Abu Dhabi Racing by Prema well ahead there as they look to try to cement their lead at the top of the team standings. Now going back to Black Arts Racing, Chem's team, the team manager is former F1 driver Alex Young, the Malaysian driver. And for those of you who've been following Asian motorsport over the last few years, you might know that his son Alistair has been trying his hand in some of the series. Took part in free practice in Abu Dhabi last weekend, now working as a race mechanic here in Dubai. So being put through his paces on and off the grid by his father. He's still in his teenage years, as many of these drivers are, so we'll see how he develops. I'm sure he'll be wanting to get back to racing as soon as he can. So a pretty interesting grid for you today. Zhou Guanyu has had 4 consecutive second place finishes and starts from pole position. He won the first 2 races of the season right here in Dubai. So it's a track that he has mastered and he likes. We heard him earlier talking to Ian saying he was confident that he could keep his nose in front going down into turn 1. And then fairly hard to overtake on this particular circuit. He will have to stay ahead of, amongst others, Ayuma Iwasa from Japan, Red Bull Junior driver, who starts alongside him on the front row of the grid. Had some rear suspension damage yesterday, so wasn't able to finish the race, but car does look absolutely fine and ready to go, and he was 3rd in round 10, race 10 I should say, on Friday, so he's been showing some pretty good form here in Dubai. Then on the second row of the grid is the championship leader Pierre-Louis Chauvet of France. 4 wins in his last 6 starts, and he is right behind Zhou Guanyu. As they look down, as we go down into turn 1, he'll be coming down the left-hand side, trying to blast past the pole sitter. Patrick Pasma, 5th, 4th and 1st in his last 3 starts. He was just the 4th race winner we've had yesterday with that sensational move, if you saw it earlier, moments ago in the highlights from yesterday, to get past Kushmaini into the lead just before the Indian driver was taken out. Then some youngsters on the 3rd row of the grid, Roberto Faria from Brazil and David Vidales from Spain. He was penalised 5 seconds for an incident in yesterday's race, which dropped him way down the grid, because we finished under safety car, so all those time gaps had closed right up. So the 5 seconds penalty to Vidales costing him a lot more than it might otherwise have been the case. Chembulek Basi, we talked about him from the Black Arts Racing team. He starts in position number 7. And Kushmaini of India, well, if there's anyone who deserves some good fortune this weekend, it is him. He had an issue early on in the first race of the weekend, had to go back into the pits, was there for about 4 or 5 laps, managed to get the issue sorted and was back out and set some absolutely blistering times. So fast he was, he set the fastest lap of the race, which meant that he started in pole position for yesterday's race. And if you were with us, you would have seen the misfortune that happened to him late on through no fault of his own. But it was deemed a racing incident as he was taken out by the Israeli driver, Roy Nassani. No stranger to controversy, often in his races. And Roy starts right behind Kushmaini in position number 10 on the 5th row of the grid on the right-hand side as they move down towards turn 1. So Kush will be perhaps a little bit concerned that the Israeli driver is in his rear-view mirror once again. Kushmaini managed to hold off Patrick Pasma at the start of yesterday's race into turn 1, and he led for the majority of the race and into the restart. And then he had fallen back after Pasma's sensational move into second position. And then that is when the contact with the Israeli driver took them both out, meaning that Zhou Guanyu was back up into a podium finish for his 4th consecutive second place. And championship leader Pierre-Louis Chauvet took the final step of the podium in 3rd. So all those drivers very much in the mix. And the other person in contention still for the championship, even though he's about 40 points off the top at the moment, is Jahan Durivala. Slightly disappointing weekend so far by his standards. He starts on the 5th row of the grid from position number 9. Now Ian was walking down the grid a little bit earlier and tells me that Irina Sidorkova appears to be the only driver here to have a new set of tyres. They all get 2 sets of GT tyres for the qualifyings and races here, but 3 races across the weekend. So some strategy whether you switch it up for race 2 or hold into race 3. And it looks like almost all of them started yesterday's race with their 2nd fresh set of rubber. Now, speaking of the tyres, it is worth mentioning that we are racing here with the Asian Le Mans Series, and you can see the banner across the top, Michelin. That's the tyre that they run for that championship. So quite a lot of rubber going down on this circuit, and it has changed the performance of the GT tyres in the F3 Asian Championship. Not for better or for worse, but just different, something for these drivers to adapt to. But they've had plenty of laps around the circuit now in the weekend. This is their 3rd race here. Looked like one of the cars towards the back had stalled. Let's hope that they can get away. I think that was Khaled Al-Kabaisi from 19th position as we recap the grid. So Zhou Guanyu and Ayuma Iwasa on the front row of the grid. Then comes championship leader Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Patrick Pasma on the 2nd row. Brazil's Roberto Faria alongside David Vidales. Chembolik Bassi, the esports driver turned racing driver, starts from position number 7 alongside Kushmani. Then come Jahan Durivala and Roy Nassani. Rhys Ushijima and Roman Stanek on the 6th row of the grid. Rafael Villagomez from Mexico on the 7th row alongside Alexandra Bardinon, who had some loose seatbelts yesterday, had to come into the pits towards the end of the race. Alex Connor and Lorenzo Fluxa on the 8th row of the grid. Alessio Deleda and Irina Sidorkova on the fresh rubber today. On the 10th row of the grid, Khaled Al-Kabaisi and Nicola Maringelli from Italy. And our final driver of the day, Amna Al-Kabaisi, who wasn't actually last in the 2nd qualifying session, but there was a steward's decision which dropped her 3 grid positions. So she had qualified in 18th, but she will start in position 21. So we are moments away now from the start of this race. And it is set up to be a bit of a cracker. A lot of interesting drivers on the track, of course, but also paying close attention. Pierre Gasly, the F1 driver from France, was sighted across the road at the Dubai Kartdrome yesterday, putting in some laps there, trying to avoid the snow in Europe before his Formula 1 season starts. And these are very much the stars of the future. There's a good chance that at least some of these drivers will make the step eventually into F1, some of them already in the F2 feeder series, including our pole sitter Zhou Guanyu, who will start his 3rd consecutive F2 season in May for the Virtuosi Racing team, and he is an Alpine F1 test driver, formerly the Renault team, of course. So moments away from the start of the 3rd race of the weekend, race number 12, as we round out round 4 of this 5-round championship. And then next weekend, we're down the road, back down the road to Yas Marina, home of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, for the final 3 races of the season. Will it be Chauvet who takes the championship? Will it be Zhou Guanyu? Or will, in fact, it be India's Jahan Durivala, who is still not out of it, but needs to put in a good performance, definitely needs to move up from 9th position where he starts on the grid. So on pole, at the top left of your screen is Zhou Guanyu, alongside Ayumu Iwasa, the Red Bull Junior driver from Japan. He has the inside track, but Zhou has that car length advantage. Second row of the grid, championship leader Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Patrick Pasma, who won yesterday, and a bit of a fumble there for Zhou Guanyu. Disaster for the Chinese driver, and it looked like Iwasa also stumbled. Well, drama here at the start, and you thought perhaps maybe they just thought there was a false start and held off, but this looks to be championship leader Pierre-Louis Chauvet taking the lead into turn one. Patrick Pasma has been squeezed out, and someone went wide there as we came down. Well, drama here at the start, and that is the number 16 car of David Vidales, who catapults himself up from 6th position into 2nd. So Pierre-Louis Chauvet of France in a very familiar position for him. He's won 5 races so far this season, and he has the best possible start from 3rd on the grid into position number 1. Vidales of Spain, this would be his best performance of the season by a streak. Patrick Pasma, yesterday's race winner, currently in 3rd position. Well, that was pretty dramatic, and I'm not quite sure what happened. We'll need to take a replay of that, but it looked as if they both moved instead of stalling on the grid, I think, and perhaps just thought they went too early, maybe before the lights are out. So feeding off each other perhaps, or just making a mistake. But either way, they both went backwards. And the Mumbai Falcons car there of Kushmani battling. And Durivala right behind his teammate there, with the 74 of Chembulik Bassi between them. So this looks like it is the battle for 7th place, with Kushmani having popped up 1 place ahead of the Turkish driver, and now sandwiched by the 2 Mumbai Falcons teammates. Well, Durivala needs to get past if he's going to keep his championship hopes alive, with 1 lap in the books. It is Pierre-Louis Chauvet from David Vidales, Patrick Pasma in 3rd, and Chauvet already pulling clear at the front of this field. Roberto Faria is in 4th place. Kushmani, in fact, in 5th. So all those 3 drivers had a good start, with Chembulik Bassi in 6th, Jahan Durivala in 7th. Roy Nassani is now in 8th position, up to after the retirements early on from Zhou Guanyu and Ayumu Iwasa from the front row of the grid. Well, let's see. Iwasa has rejoined, it looks like, and he's in 18th position. I think Zhou Guanyu did get away in the end and is in 15th position. So, still there. Oh, and another spin at the back with some damage as well. So more drama early on in this race, and I did talk about the races getting progressively more and more exciting as the weekend went through. Friday's race was not too exciting with a safety car, 2 safety cars in yesterday's race. Let's hope we don't have, it looks like we might have one for that incident here now. But early on, let's try and get back to racing as soon as possible, because with just 30 minutes on the clock for these sprint races, that does suggest the safety car is going to come out, unfortunately. So our leader on screen there, Pierre-Louis Chauvet, won't mind too much as the laps and the time just tick away. He would extend, well, with Zhou Guanyu's misfortune at the start of the race, he would open up a sizable gap. Near enough 40 points at a rough estimation at this point, with 3 races left. So this could prove decisive in the championship battle. Zhou Guanyu was desperate to celebrate the start of the Chinese New Year with a race win here. He'd had 2nd on Friday, 2nd yesterday, and he was confident of a win today, starting in pole position, but it wasn't to be. So let's have another look at that start and see exactly what happened on the front row of the grid. So the red lights are on, and they moved and then they stopped. I'm not sure if they were looking at each other, and they both did get away, but they were absolutely swamped by the field. Well, what can you say? Just a poor start from both the drivers on the front row of the grid. That allowed Chauvet to come right up. A nice move from Patrick Pasma, attempted move. In fact, David Vidales arguably had the best start of all from 6th position up into 2nd, the young Spanish driver, as we come back to the safety car. And it was Amna Alcubasi who retired yesterday, and it was her car that we see stranded at the top of the straight there. So more misfortune for the Emirati driver. And let's hope that we can get it cleared as quickly as possible, and we can get a good 20 minutes or so back to racing. So Pierre-Louis Chauvet is in the lead. David Vidales in 2nd, Patrick Pasma in 3rd, Roberto Faria in 4th position. Then comes Kush Maini, who is looking to bounce back from the terrible luck that he has had so far this weekend. But he's already up 3 spots from his starting position of number 8. Chembol Bassi is in 6th, Jahan Darivala in 7th, Roy Nassani in 8th, Reese Ushijima in 9th, and Roman Stanek, the Czech driver for the High-Tech GP team, is currently rounding out the points in position number 10. So let's just have a look at what happened to Amna at the top of the straight. Her car still being cleaned up at the top of the straight. And just keep your eyes at the top of the screen. Oh, and she just, lost it. Hit into the wall after a spin. And fortunately, given her position in the field, it didn't take out anyone else. So the safety car, an all too familiar sight this weekend, unfortunately. But if there is a silver lining, and of course we remain optimistic, the safety car will not be with us for too much longer, we hope. We can get back to racing and see if David Vidales, the 18-year-old Spaniard, can take a run at Pierre-Louis Chauvet at the restart. Well, you would massively favour Chauvet to hold his lead with the experience that he has here in this championship. Vidales was racing in the Formula Renault Europe Championship last year, where he finished 6th, and he's a two-time Spanish karting champion, so has some pretty good pedigree. But it is Chauvet with his 5 race wins in 11 races so far, who is absolutely the man in form in this series. And he signed up again for another Formula 3 season with the Genza Motorsport team. That'll be starting later in the year. He drove in the Formula 3 series last year, with four of the races, and also finished 5th in the Formula Regional European Championship. So Pierre-Louis Chauvet, one of several of these young drivers who have hopes of progressing up the motorsport pyramid. And hopefully this will be the last time we see the safety car and we can get back to racing. So we have 20 drivers still out there. Amna Alcubasi was the retired driver from that crash we saw just a moment ago, as she lost it at the top of the straight and spun into the wall. Well, that's good to see. The safety car is going in, and with 2/3 of the race remaining, let's see what happens at the restart. A familiar leader, Vidales, we're not used to seeing him up there so far. He's only finished once in the points, and And that was a 9th place finish on Friday in race number 10. So his second position right here is a massive improvement. Will he be feeling the pressure? We'll see. Patrick Pasma, confident of his race win yesterday, will be trying to get past him and then to take a crack at the leader. But it is Chauvet who holds the advantage right now. Vidal is perhaps playing a few mind games, just edging up on the Frenchman. As the safety car is in, the cars speed up, and we are going to be back to racing. Let's go again. Live coverage of the F3 Asian Championship, with 4 laps in the books now for race leader and championship leader Pierre-Louis Chauvet. Takes us down into turn 1 at the restart. David Vidales is in position number 2 with Patrick Pasma in 3. Roberto Faria and Kushmani complete the top 5, and a battle there with Alexandre Bardinon trying to move up through the field. But so far, no change in the top group of drivers. Now Vidales has to keep it close, otherwise Chauvet is going to do what he's done time and time again this season and just eke out an unbeatable lead. Patrick Pasma also is lining up the Spaniard to try to get past him into second place. And you see the 2 orange cars there. That's Jahan Durivala just having a look at Cembuluk Barsi for 6th position. And then you wonder what's going to happen between the 2 Indian drivers if they were side by side. The Mumbai Falcon teammates. Durivala is the man in championship contention. But if he finishes too far down, Pierre-Louis Chauvet's lead will just be almost unsurmountable at the end of this race. Plenty of action here. They'll now have to be careful there, the teammates, as Rhys Ushijima and Roman Stanek battle there for position number 9. And Alexandre Bardinon right behind, and that is Bardinon, who has crashed out with Jahan Durivala. Disaster for the Indian driver. Well, the Mumbai Falcons team has had some awful luck this weekend. I'll have to wait for a replay to see what happened, but Bardinon again in the walls. He had an issue yesterday with an early retirement. And it was Jahan Durivala who finished out of the points yesterday, and his teammate was taken out. Well, this time it's been him. So no change at the top, but plenty. Oh, and a red flag, so that should see the cars. Unfortunately, more drama here and another stoppage. But the clock has stopped, and so hopefully we can get this cleared and the cars will all proceed back to the pits. So the incident between Jahan Durivala and Alexandre Bardinon is under investigation. But with them both stopped on track and out of the race, the red flag is out. The cars will be back out. The first red flag of the weekend, and obviously just very dangerous position on the track. So the rest of the field creep past. Pierre-Louis Chauvet still leads from David Vidales and Patrick Pasma. There are your top 3. And unfortunately, another stoppage here. We had one yellow flag on Friday. 2 yellow flags yesterday. A yellow flag earlier today, and now the 5th flag of the racing weekend. In just 90 minutes of racing with the 3 30-minute races that we have. So nothing we can do here but just hope that the track is cleared and we can get the drivers back out before we run out of time. Otherwise, Pierre-Louis Chauvet is going to take yet another race victory. We saw both Friday and Saturday's race finish under the yellow flag. Pasma didn't really seem to care. He was delighted and sped up as much as he could around the final corner, despite taking it under the yellow flag, just to try and celebrate with his team, and he was pumping the air as he took the checkered flag for his first race victory of the season. So the cars are back in, and we wait, but nothing we can do at the moment. So all the cars now back in pit lane. With a couple of cars needing to be removed. So hopefully that will happen as soon as possible. The Pinnacle team back in pit lane will be probably pretty calm right now, knowing that their man is on course for yet another win here in the F3 Asian Championship. So let's take a look back at some of the action that we've seen so far as we wait to see if we can get back to racing here in Dubai. Well, keep an eye on the front 2 cars, and they moved and then stopped and were swamped by the field at the start of this race. As we take another look back, and they did manage to get away, they didn't stall, but a disastrous start for Ayuma Iwasa and pole sitter Zhou Guanyu, allowing championship leader Pierre-Louis Chauvet to take the lead at the front of this race. David Vidales moving from 6th position up into 2nd, with yesterday's race winner Patrick Pasma in 3rd, rounding out the podium positions, and that is as they stand so far, with a red flag. Now the 2 Indian drivers in the orange and blue car battling with the Turkish driver of Cem Bulukbasi. There was some drama to come involving one of those, and that was Amna Al-Khabaisi, the local driver who retired for the 2nd straight race. That brought out the first of the safety car. And that was the battle for 5th position with the number 28 car of Kushmani ahead of Cem Bulukbasi. And just as we watch some midfield battles here, there was an incident further up the track. And this was the unfortunate retirement of Alexandra Bardinon in the number 25 car, and Jahan Durivala, who currently sits in 3rd position in the championship standings. And he was desperate to move up from his position of starting position of 9th on the grid today to try to stay in touch for the race for this title, but that has not helped him one bit. Meanwhile, Zhou Guanyu was trying to eat into that lead from pole position, was confident that he was going to keep the lead into turn 1 and then not let anyone pass him, as he told Ian ahead of the race. Unfortunately, the exact opposite happened, and he had a bit of a stop-go at the start, went right back. So Zhou Guanyu is currently in 8th position he managed to recover and move up at least some positions to get some points, but Pierre-Louis Chauvet has a huge advantage now with the clock continuing to tick. 25 points are getting closer and closer to becoming his. Once again, this would go down as his 6th win in 12 races. A 50% hit rate is extremely impressive. And it is a competitive field here as well, with several F2 drivers, several more F3 drivers. And one of the advantages, someone was asking on the live stream yesterday, were they awarding super license points for this season? And the answer is yes, absolutely they are, and that is one of the main reasons why so many of these highly rated young drivers have come here to try to bank as many points as they can. And the season has been compressed into just a month long, with rounds 1 and 2 here in Dubai. Sorry, rounds 1 in Dubai, then 2 and 3 in Yas Marina, back here in Dubai, and then next weekend we'll be back to Yas Marina for the final 3 races of the season. And so with nothing else to do in their respective motorsport worlds, they've come over to the United Arab Emirates for a month and can get 15 races in that time, so some fantastic experience for the drivers and some valuable super license points on offer as well. Now you need about 40, you need exactly 40 super license points to get your F1 license. As I've mentioned, several of these drivers harbour realistic hopes of one day competing in Formula 1. And a win here for Chauvet would give him close to half that number. So it is absolutely worth his time to come over here and compete in the F3 Asian Championship. So red flag after an incident, if you're just joining us, in the middle of the pack between Jahan Darivala and Alexandre Bardinon. And that is why currently all the cars are in pit lane waiting, and it's just been flag after flag after flag this weekend. Sometimes that happens. So just to confirm, if you win the F2 championship, or if you come in the top 3, you get your 40 super license points. If you win this championship, you get 18. So close to half the amount needed to qualify into F1. Second place gets you 14, third is 12. And so it's a bit of a steal, really, if you look at it from that point of view, to come over here for just 1 month, get so many races under your belt, get that experience, bank those super license points, and then for those drivers who are going back into F2, such as Zhou Guanyu, who will go back into his 3rd season, if he can improve on his 7th and 6th positions that he's had in the last 2 seasons, then he'll be right on course for his F1 license, as he hopes to become China's first Formula 1 driver. Now let's go down to speak to David Vidales, currently in position number 2, who's down in the pits with Ian.
In second place, David Vidales. What a brilliant start. What actually happened, the run down into turn 1?
Yeah, I did a good start. I had a good traction, some cars in front. We had a worse start, so I managed to go in second position and keep it in turn 1. Then trying to follow the guy in front and try to attack him. Now we'll see when the race restarts how it's going to be.
Thanks, David. We'll let you get back to it. David Vidales in position 2.
Well, quick translation, it's a little bit hard to hear, but David Vidal is just explaining how he managed to get from 6th up into 2nd at the start of this race, and he has done particularly well. Well, Ian is also still in the pits with another of the leading drivers. He is speaking to PLC, Pierre-Louis Chauvet. Ian, over to you.
Pierre-Louis Chauvet in position 1. Guan Yu stalled off the start. You got a brilliant start. The safety car has interrupted your rhythm.
Yeah, it was quite fast in terms of pace, so yeah, I expect to keep the same and win the race. The start was really nice, and yeah, unfortunately for Zhu, he stalled. So yeah, now let's say the race is in my hands.
Bonne chance, Pierre-Louis. Best of luck for the rest of the race.
Well, I have some good news for you if you're still with us. We have been informed that there are 15 minutes remaining here, so the clock has been stopped at 15 minutes. So as soon as the track is cleared to the marshal's satisfaction, the cars will be back out, and we will get half of this race still to go. Now, as Ian said, Pierre-Louis Chauvet's rhythm was disturbed somewhat, but you would pretty much put the house on the Frenchman being able to steer clear of trouble and just eke out another lead. But David Vidales is currently the man charged with trying to overhaul him, and Patrick Pasma, fresh of his win from yesterday in 3rd position, will still fancy his chances as well. Further down, Roberto Faria, the Brazilian who drives under a British licence, is in 4th position with Kush Maini in 5th. Now Roberto Faria is down in the pits with Ian. Let's hear what he has to say and how he's feeling.
Roberto Faria, what a brilliant start. You're only 1 place off the podium. Can you bring it home when we go back green?
Yeah, that's my best position. Wait. Okay, this was my best position since I start the championship. And yeah, I hope I can overtake them in the restart of the safety car and bring to home a podium. The Zhu, I think, had a problem in the start, so I just managed to gain 1 place, and now I'm P4, and I hope I can do some overtakes at the end.
Fantastic start, Roberto Faria, the boy from Brazil, bring it home in the second part of the race.
Thanks very much, Ian. Well, Roberto Faria started in position number 5 and was overtaken by David Vidales, but then, of course, passed the 2 cars on the front row of the grid, Zhou Guanyu and Ayuma Iwasa. So is currently sitting in 4th position. Zhou recovered best of those 2, and he's currently in 8th position. Ayuma Iwasa is down in 13th. So still some work for the Japanese driver to get back up into the points, and disappointment for him, particularly after his retirement yesterday with a rear suspension issue. But he was 3rd in Friday's race and started from position number 2. So he's certainly shown more than a few glimpses of top form. And as soon as we can get back to racing here, we will have half the race still to run. So please do stay with us to see what happens in the second half of this race. We appreciate your patience as we have another flag incident, the first red flag of the weekend. And the previous 2 races both finished under the yellow flag, so we very much hope that that will not be the case today. So to recap, Pierre-Louis Chauvet is in 1st position currently from David Vidales, as we look at the Israeli driver Roy Nassani, who retired in yesterday's race from position number 3 and he took out Kush Maini, who was just trying to turn across him. It looked like Nissany went straight on and took out the back of the Indian driver's car. They both retired, but it was deemed a racing incident, so no penalties to either driver. But Kush Maini has made up some ground today. He started in position number 8. He's now up into 5th, but he still has Roy Nissany right behind him, as he did yesterday, as he did on the starting grid today, and as he did when he was taken out by the Israeli in yesterday's race. So he will be trying to get clear and stay out of trouble. Nissany, a somewhat unpredictable driver, but he does have some pace. Had a brilliant start yesterday to get right up amongst the leaders. And we should be back to racing in about 1 minute's time here. And then we have 15 minutes to go. So finally, we can get back to racing. So Pierre-Louis Chauvet will get this field back underway here as he looks for his 6th win of the season. David Vidal is in 2nd, Patrick Pasma in 3rd, Roberto Faria is in position number 4, Kush Maini in 5th, Roy Nissany in 6th, Rhys Ushijima in 7th, ahead of Zhou Guanyu, who, if you missed the start, was our pole sitter for today's race, but then pretty much stalled on the grid. He recovered finally after falling right back down, and he has been working his way through the field. Now, he has some form when it comes to moving through the field. And there was a race last weekend where he fell right to the back and had to start from the back of the field, and it ended up finishing in 5th position in just a 30-minute race. So if Zhou is able to move up a few more places, he can try to keep Chauvet's lead at the top of the championship standings to as small as possible, but it's already 19 points and set to grow if the Frenchman stays in 1st position. So Zhou Guanyu has Rhys Ushijima immediately ahead of him. He's the 1st man in his sights. And then Roy Nissany and Kush Maini are the next 2 ahead of him on the grid. So number 9 currently is Roman Stanek, as we look at the 51 car of Irina Sidorkova, the only driver, as far as we can tell, with a new set of tyres for today's race. All the other drivers opted to use their 2nd of the 2 sets for yesterday's race, and then they'll just pick a combination of the best 4 tyres, the GT tyres used in the F3 Asian Championship, for the start of today. And they'll be trying to warm those tyres up as much as possible after they were cooling somewhat back in pit lane after a red flag incident which happened after some sort of contact between Jahan Derivala and Alexandra Bardinon, who were both out of the race, as is Amna Al-Khabaisi. In a separate incident, she spun and hit the wall. So 18 drivers still on the track here, and the clock started from 15 minutes for the safety car lap. The safety car will be going back in a few moments' time, and Pierre-Louis Chauvet is backing up the field. Vidal is again getting very, very close. Now the Frenchman starts to crank up the speed as we go down the straight into turn 1. It was a bit of a long delay there after a red flag, but we're back to green. Pierre-Louis Chauvet gets us back underway here. 7 laps in the books from David Vidales and Patrick Pasma. Roberto Faria and Kush Maini are in 4th and 5th. Pasma all over the back of David Vidales here as we come into turn 1. And Pierre-Louis Chauvet already opening up a bit of a gap at the front, and that looks ominous as the Frenchman goes for yet another win. Chauvet, Vidales, Pasma, Freya, Kushmani are your top 5. Then Roy Nissany, Reese Ushijima, Joe Guan Yu, Roman Stanek, and Alex Connor rounding out the top 10. And that is the point standings. So as the rest of the field comes through, we see the Turkish driver in the number 74 car of Cem Bolikbasi. So he may have had an issue on the outlap there, because he seems to have fallen down a little bit down the field. Now, Joe Guan Yu trying to get past Roy Nissany, and oh, he's gone wide, trying to avoid him, but he's done it. He's got past the Israeli driver, and he's already got past Reese Ushijima by the looks of things as well. So Joe Guan Yu restarted here in position number 8, having fallen right down the field. Someone's gone very wide. Is that Nissany again? Well, lots of drama here at the restart, but Joe Guan Yu is making some significant strides here. Fell right back down from pole position at the start, and then was 8th at the red flag, already up into 6th position, and now has his sights set on the Mumbai Falcons car of Kush Maini in position number 5. So, with another look at the leaders here, Pierre-Louis Chauvet still leads from David Vidales, who is under fire from Patrick Pasma, and a dive down the inside there from Rafa Villa-Gomez. And it looks like Stanek has run wide there to try and avoid contact. Well, plenty happening here at the restart. All sorts of action here at the Dubai Autodrome. But no change in the top 5 so far. Pierre-Louis Chauvet still leads and has opened up a second and a bit gap ahead of David Vidales of Spain. Patrick Pasma, the Finn, yesterday's race winner, is in 3rd position at the moment. Roberto Faria is in 4th. And there is going to be another investigation between an incident between Nissany and Usajima at turn 12. They'll be taking another look at that as Nicola Maranghelli tries to put some pressure on Alex Connor there. The number 8 car of Rafa Villa-Gomez in 10th position, holding off Alex Connor. So plenty of scrappy battles in the middle of this race. And another move, and that is Ayuma Iwasa there in the 12th car, trying to make up. Oh, nice move around the inside there as he regains some of the positions that he had lost. Like Joe Guan Yu, he has also made up a couple of positions since the restart of this race. With just 8 minutes to go now, 9 laps in the books. Chauvet leads. 1.5 seconds is the gap at the front of this field. And then David Vidales, under pressure still from Patrick Pasma in 3rd. Roberto Faria, Kush Maini, Joe Guan Yu, recently moving up into 6th position. Roy Nissany and Reese Usajima. An incident between those 2 cars under investigation. Rafael Villa-Gomez in 9th position, then Roman Stanek in 10th. Alex Connor is in 11th, and the man behind him is Ayuma Iwasa, the Red Bull Junior driver, who started on the front row of the grid, if you missed it, and alongside the pole sitter, both of them inched forward, then stopped, and then finally got going, but were absolutely miles back by the time they got up to full speed. So they have been trying to cut through the field, but time is not on their side, as we have some battling teammates with, Roy Nissany always courting some sort of controversy with Reese Usajima. They may not know they're under investigation right now, but giving the stewards another thing to look at, with Rafa Villagomez going wide there. Well, these drivers are leaving absolutely everything out there on the track. Roy Nassani desperately trying to hold off Rafa Villagomez. Villagomez trying to go around the outside. Will he try and cut back? The door closing, and he's... Oh, nearly contact there with Ushijima right behind him. So some drama here in the middle of the pack. More than making up for some of the lulls we had earlier in the race with the two flagged incidents that we had. Pierre-Louis Chauvet, though, is just about 5 minutes away from victory here, with close to a 2-second gap that he's opened up at the front of this field. David Vidales now has a little bit of breathing room. A second place finish for him would be absolutely sensational for the Spanish driver. Patrick Pasma seems to be content right now to hold on to a podium position. Another little gap to Roberto Faria, but he's under pressure from Kushmani, and he is also under fire from Zhou Guanyu. So the battle for 4th position, just coming into the top of the screen there, those 3 drivers at the top of the straight, that could be an area to watch. They're perhaps just a little bit distant from the top trio if they were to move into the podium positions at this stage. But Zhou Guanyu tries to put a move on Kushmani. Can he make it stick and go up yet another place? As further back, Ayuma Iwasa looks to take another move back and climb back up this leaderboard. Iwasa in 12th position, so would need to take another position to get into the points. And that is the man who he's got his eyes on. Roman Stanek in the silver number 11 car is in position number 10 as things stand. So the Japanese driver all over the back of him, makes a move there. It's not going to go around the outside, but the inside will give him better luck. Looks to have done it. Oh, and right back from Stanek. Sensational moves from the pair of them there to swap place and back again. And Stanek clings on to a single point in the standings right now, but for how much longer? Probably got a couple of more laps here before the end of this race. So Zhou Guanyu did in fact take that position away from Kushmani. He's in 5th position now, and you would think he's got a realistic chance of having a pretty good crack at Roberto Faria for 4th position. That would stop Chauvet getting too far ahead at the top of the leaderboard, as Rish Ushijima, as Ayuma Iwasa has another look at Roman Stanek for position 10. The number 5 car there of Alex Connor, just 16 years old, making his debut here in Dubai this weekend. Now, this is Zhou Guanyu trying desperately to get past Roberto Faria, and he looks to have done it. Down into turn 1. So a very, very good recovery after huge disappointment for the Chinese driver at the start of this race. Went backwards from pole position, almost to the bottom of the field. But has managed to get himself back up into 4th position when the timing board updates, for which he will be getting 12 points. So he'll be ceding 13 points to Chauvet, who already has a 19-point gap. But there are 3 races left next weekend at Yas Marina, so all is not lost. But certainly a mixed weekend for Zhou Guanyu. He had 4 consecutive second-place finishes coming into this race, and was starting on pole. And he really thought that he had the form and the position on track to convert those 4 second places into finally his 3rd race win of the season. He's been waiting a long time after winning the first 2 races of the championship, But this man on screen now, Pierre-Louis Chauvet, is under 2 minutes away from his 6th win in 12 races. And he has not quite been unbeatable, but when he gets his nose in front, he is very, very hard to pass. So Chauvet leads, a familiar sight in the F3 Asian Championship. David Vidales on course for his first podium position of the weekend. Patrick Pasma, who won yesterday's race, is looking for back-to-back podiums. And short of something dramatic happening in the final seconds of this race, that will be your top 3. But Zhou Guanyu went from first to almost last and then back up to 4th. So good recovery, but he will inevitably be disappointed. He celebrated, in inverted commas, Chinese New Year right before the eve of Friday night's race by staying up late and working with his team on the car. Very dedicated young driver, and will be rejoining the F2 series when it gets underway in May of this year. So Pierre-Louis Chauvet is now putting some gap into this field. 2.5 seconds he leads from David Vidales, and he is moments away from another celebratory moment. He will have more than 30 points lead at the top of this championship with 3 races remaining, which will mean that the championship is very much in his hands, even if Zhou Guanyu is able to win all 3 races. And that is a comfortable position to be in with 3 races to go. As we come down the long back straight into turn 10, Pierre-Louis Chauvet from David Vidales and Patrick Pasma. Zhou Guanyu in 4th, and Roberto Faria, a very impressive drive from him in 5th. Disappointment for Kushmaini, the Indian driver, in 6th, but he'll still be picking up some decent points. But he'd had 2 retirements in the previous 2 races this weekend, so he'll be happier with his performance today. But a pretty action-packed race here, with an early crash for Amna Al-Khabaisi, and then a red flag incident after contact between Duravala and Bardinon. But Pierre-Louis Chauvet will get his 6th win of this championship season. David Vidales comes through for 2nd place. Patrick Pasma, the Finn, taking 3rd place for the Evans GP team. Delight there in the pits. Zhou Guanyu recovered well to finish in 4th position, going past both Roberto Faria and Kushmaini after the restart. That we had 15 minutes of racing after that red flag that had brought the cars back into the pits. Rish Usujima is in 7th position ahead of Roy Nassani, who was always battling with the cars close to him throughout this race. Rafa Villagomez finished in 9th, and Ayuma Iwasa did in the end get up into the points, having started from the front row of the grid and then falling way back in the field. So an up and down weekend for him, with a 3rd place finish and a retirement so far, and then an up and down race for him as well, but at least a consolatory point in today's race. Cem Bolik-Bassi was in 11th place, Roman Stanek in 12th, Alex O'Connor in 13th, Lorenzo Fluxa in 14th, Nicolo Marinangeli in 15th, Alessio Deleda, Irina Sidorkova and Khaled Al-Khabaisi rounding out the field, with 3 drivers unable to finish today's race.
That was
Well, let's take a look at some of the highlights of this race. And it was action-packed throughout. If you're just joining us, there was plenty of action on the track, and including 2 stoppages as well. Now, watch the front row of the grid, because both of those 2 drivers, Zhou Guanyu on the right-hand side and Ayumu Iwasa, stalled pretty much, but then managed to get going as they were swamped by the field. But Pierre-Louis Chauvet, the championship leader, starting from position number 3, was then able to get himself up in front into turn 1, ahead of David Vidales, going from 6th to 2nd, and Patrick Pasma up into 3rd. And that is how it finished. There was plenty of action throughout this race, all the way through this field, even if we didn't have too much change at the top. That was Kushmaini there, battling, and at this point, he was in 6th position ahead of Cembolo Bassi and his teammate Duravala. At the top of the straight there, Amna Al-Kubaisi spun around and hit the wall with pretty significant damage. So that brought out the safety car. And we were back to racing. And the 28 car of Kushmaini was battling throughout. 13 and 11 of Rhys Usajima and Roman Stanek. And this brought out a red flag. Jahan Durivala in the 19 car with Alexandra Bardenov. Appears to be no hard feelings between those 2, although we didn't see exactly what happened. But the cars were back to the pits for quite some time before we got back out for the second half of this race. Pierre-Louis Chauvet paraded round 1 lap behind the safety car before, you'd have to say, coasting home for victory here with his 6th win of the season, and has a commanding lead at the top of this championship now with just 3 races to go. Still plenty happening behind him and behind the top 3, with Zhou Guanyu in particular and Ayumu Iwasa, those 2 from the front row of the grid, carving their way back through the field and both into the points. Zhou finishing all the way up in 4th position, so very impressive after his dreadful start. Ayumu Iwasa finishing eventually in 10th position. Roy Nissany battling there with Rafa Villagomez. And it was Nissany who managed to hold him off in this battle for 8th position. And this was Zhou Guanyu getting past Roberto Faria up into 4th place. And if he is able to put some wins under his belt in Yas Marina, just wonder if that is significant. Just trying to keep Chauvet in touch, even though the Frenchman has a pretty sizable lead. And here he is again, taking the checkered flag. His team celebrates, and it is his 6th win of the season, and his 5th in the last 6 starts. So confirmation, Pierre-Louis Chauvet is our race winner. David Vidales in 2nd, Patrick Pasma in 3rd. Zhou Guanyu, who is 2nd in the standings, finishing in 4th position. Roberto Faria in 5th. Kushmaini in 6th. Rhys Usajima and his High-Tech GP teammate Roy Nissany in 7th and 8th, Rafa Villagomez in 9th, and Roman Stanek in 10th. And in fact, we've just got a little bit of a issue with the standings there. These are provisional results, but I do think that Ayumu Iwasa was able to get up into 10th position. The results at this stage always provisional, but we will have confirmation online to see exactly what happened. But the top 3 shouldn't change. Now let's see if we can hear from some of the drivers. Patrick Pasma, who won yesterday and is back on the podium today, He is down in the pits with Ian. Let's see what Patrick Pasma has to say. Over to you, Ian.
Patrick, another difficult drive today. Third was the best you could do. You did drive as hard as possible. Tell us about the race. Red flag interrupted as well.
Yeah, it was really a lot of things happening on the race. Red flag, safety car, and yeah, we used the better tires yesterday on the race too, and I think most of the people saved the tires for this race. So but I think, yeah, we maximized the points from these two races, so yeah, not too bad.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Lots of Turkish fans tuning in to the coverage, and I can tell you that their man Cem Bolukbasi finished just out of the points in position number 11, having started from 7th on the grid. He was 7th and 8th in the two races earlier this weekend, so just out of the points this time. Now, Pierre-Louis Chauvet, our race winner and championship leader, is down with Ian. Let's see what he has to say about another win.
PLC in car 3 goes position 1 for the 6th time. You must be thinking about the championship after another brilliant drive, Pierre-Louis Chauvet.
Yeah, really nice to win again for the 6th time. I think last year I didn't game, let's say, so really happy about that. Nice start and then a nice pace. Then it was interrupted by the red flag, so it was a bit stressful, but yeah, the pace was really nice, so really happy about that, and now focus on the last round for the title.
Congratulations. Thank you, Pierre-Louis Chauvet.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, he'll be concentrating on the final 3 races of the weekend in next weekend, I should say, Yas Marina down the road. Back once again, that's where we had round 2 and round 3. So there will be 9 of the 15 races on the Yas Marina circuit. And we've just completed our 6th and final one here. So let's see David Vidales, he finished in 2nd, down to Ian, who's with the Spaniard.
David Vidales, welcome to the Formula 3 Asian Championship. Congratulations, a brilliant drive and a podium.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a good weekend. I think we have good steps forward, and in this last race the pace also looked good. Not to win the race, but I think we are making good steps in the right direction. So it's now let's prepare for Abu Dhabi to make a good weekend.
Congratulations, David. Best of luck for Yas Marina next weekend.
Thank you very much.
Well, another win for Pierre-Louis Chauvet. He has 221 points and a 32-point lead at the top of the standings with 3 races left to go. Join us for coverage of the final 3 races of the season in Yas Marina next weekend. Confirmation of Chauvet, Vidales and Pasma, the top 3, and Chauvet takes a sizable lead into next weekend. Goodbye and see you soon.